Okay, great. And I mean, Sky, that's where I met you and we worked together. You hired me, if I remember correctly.
Mm.
And
Fantastic. One of my best hires. When you were trying to snap you.
I'm not sure where you went. Hello, welcome to the show. This is Ahead in Tech, helping you get ahead in tech. I'm Sanj. Today I'm here with Shabir Mukhtar. Shabir is a developer and manager who's worked on some really big projects with national and international reach at some of the biggest companies in India and the UK. And today we're going to be talking about his latest venture, which is a FoodTech startup in the UK. Take me back to the very beginning. I'd like to know, from the point that you got your first job in tech, what have you done up to now?
Sure. So yeah, several jobs. I think I've had about 6 jobs before starting the new tech company. So I started on my first job with a telecom services company, and I was doing a lot of you could call it proof of concept work for them for pretty much the first 6 to 12 months, which was really cool and really good. I mean, a soft landing for a new starter. But then I was put into a client project, and it was something completely different compared to what I'd expected. So it was reverse engineering the code base of a client, and then figuring out, doing a reverse engineering to UML diagrams, if you know what UML
Yeah,
diagrams are. So, like class diagrams,
yeah.
sequence diagrams, and so on. So very interesting project, and probably not what I'd expected it to be. But yeah, things got better, and after that, sort of similar kind of projects, working for clients, and then I moved to a company called Sling Media, which was Bangalore based. So Silicon Valley of India, fantastic environment, really high tech work being done as well out there. So there were lots of very talented engineers from premier education institutions, and doing top class work there. So there were a lot of patents being filed and things because we are creating something brand new in terms of technology. So it kind of predated a lot of the streaming tech which you see right now. So this was pre-HLS sort of thing, and the company had its own proprietary streaming algorithm. So really cool stuff. That's kind of where how do I say it? I sort of earned my stripes or earned my spurs kind of thing.
Hmm.
Late nights, high tech, uh, really talented engineers, and I learned a lot out there. And that's pretty much carried me through the rest of my career in terms of the knowledge I gained there. So fantastic opportunity. Then there was an itch of moving to the West, so um, I spoke to a few American companies, few British companies as well. And then as things worked out, I ended up in the UK, but not in London where I actually wanted to be. I was in a little town in the north of England called Shipley, and I was working again for a consultancy, again in pretty much the video streaming space, um, but working with an American client. So really cool stuff. So that's where I kind of was playing the consultant role, sort of thing, as against being a product engineer. So that went well. Then switched a couple of jobs. I think the cool job which I did have was working on contactless payments on the London Underground, and adding replacing magnetic stripe-based payment cards on the underground with actual smart cards, not just on the underground, even the sort of rail networks around the UK. So that was pretty good. Worked on some very high-profile projects out there. So the going conversion to cashless bus on all of the buses in London, the Night Tube project, so very significant in terms of the London scene. And then there were all of these sort of train related, or sort of logistics related activities which we are doing to make sure the end user would be able to use the London Underground in a smooth way. So that happened. Another switch to back to the video streaming industry from there, and had a short stint there. They wanted me to relocate to America, which I didn't want to do at the time. And then I ended up in Sky, where I spent 5 years of my career.
I mean, that was an amazing place to work, and that was an amazing project. So you worked on like the Sky Go mobile app before Peacock, right?
I worked on the SkyGo desktop apps actually. So it was
Okay.
fundamentally the what used to be the SkyGo website, which got deprecated in favor of an electron-based, uh, web-based desktop app.
And then you moved on to Peacock, and
Yeah.
Peacock TV in the US, run by NBC, developed largely by Sky in the UK and in Lisbon. I mean, that was like a massive and amazing project, and that was so much fun. I mean, do you have any memories that stand out for you from that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, working for Sky itself is massive because Sky is, probably the largest media company in Europe, and you work for a lot of tech companies. But when you work for Sky, I truly understood what working at scale meant. So obviously, when there's a big Man United, Man City game going on, there's something like a million people trying to stream an HD quality video. So lots of data being pumped around various servers. You need to make sure latency is minimums because you again not only are you trying to deliver the best stream, you want to get as close as possible to traditional broadcast video, which is a few seconds ahead. So that's really, I mean, if someone wants to work at scale, then definitely Sky is gives you that opportunity to work at scale. But Sky is very much a European company, and when the Peacock, it wasn't even called Peacock at the time, when the NBC Universal opportunity came up, being an American company and catering to the 300, 350 million American, people in the USA, plus and they don't, the American companies seldom stay within America. They end up being global companies. So it presented a massive opportunity. So we started off with a lot of technology which was built for the various Sky products, and then they were, slowly but surely repurposed to fit the American market. So Peacock really took things to the next level. We did a big bang launch on the 15th of July, and then there's been, an absolutely crazy growth rate since then. Last I heard in the press was something like 33 or 35 million subscribers. So
Wow.
really good project, and it's not every day that you get the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I would completely agree with what you said, despite all the challenges.
Yeah, and I haven't even mentioned the fact that this was all done with the team working completely remotely. So any theories out there which says people aren't productive working from home, I mean,
Mm,
this absolutely shattered every single such theory.
mm,
In fact, I think people's productivity probably went up, and
mm.
yeah, it's only then you can deliver something world class. So, yeah, no, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that.
Let's fast forward now in time to like the present day. So, Cook My Grub. This is your new startup. This is your company, your baby now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I think as sort of parent of two young children, we are always, and with my wife's a cloud architect as well for a large European corporation. So both of us in and out of meetings, especially now with COVID, and even when the schools were shut, very very difficult to find the time to make fresh home cooked meals. And we struggled with that for many years, and then sometime beginning of last year, me and a friend who sort of mentioned exactly something similar. We were sat together and we were talking about our difficulties in life, like people do, sat in a pub. So we thought, how about we create an online marketplace or an aggregation platform where all of these home chefs, so people who would like home cooked food and people who make home cooked food, if we bring all of them together on one platform and create software, create the customer support, and create an organization, efficient marketplace around it. Wouldn't that be great? So that's kind of how the idea was conceived. And then we put in place a software development team. Um, we had help from some friends who are from the food industry as well, so they made sure we were doing things correctly from a food and hygiene perspective. And eventually we ended up trialing the product in August of 2020, and then we did an official launch in one town, Maidenhead, which is where we live, in September. And from that time, it's been a case of gradually growing the company, scaling it out, scaling it up. We've added a lot more people. There's something like 10 people involved in the business. Three of us are full time. The others are, sort of consultants part time. And the plan is to raise some funds now and then fuel the next phase of growth. So it's been really well received so far. Uh, we've, there's a lot of people post COVID who are, lacking employment, and this provided them an employment opportunity. But equally, there were a lot of people, who had so much more time suddenly, and they were at home, cooking up, making some fusion cuisine, cooking things up, and thinking they're the next Gordon Ramsay. So this kind of platform empowers them as well. Not only can they cook for themselves, but they can cook for others as well. There's obviously some amount of training and compliance which needs to be done up front so that they become eligible to cook on the platform. And then there's ongoing checks to ensure food and hygiene isn't the food hygiene. But it's been really interesting, exciting. There's something new every single day. Um, I've, I do food deliveries as well very regularly. Maybe the first couple of months, me and my co-founder were pretty much doing all the food deliveries ourselves. After that, we got a few delivery drivers to help us out. There've been discussions with people in the press. We've been on BBC Radio, so it's all been good so far. I think for us the key is now, doing a successful crowdfund and get hire more talented people who are driven and motivated, and take this to the next level. Try and make this the Airbnb of food.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how it goes.
I'm sure it's going to go great. I mean, talking about success, like we couldn't speak yesterday because you were mentioned on the BBC News website and your app was exploding. So, you didn't have time for anything.
Yeah,
Right?
it was something out of the blue. I mean, you have to do a lot to get onto, main page article on the BBC, and it kind of happened unexpectedly. So I normally have my stand up with the technology team at 7:30 morning time, which is pretty much immediately after I wake up. And we've got some analytics in place for the website, and I was suddenly seeing so many hits, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I actually Googled our company name, CookMyGrub, to see if something came up, and nothing came up. And then about 10 minutes later, a friend sent me the link, and he said, "Look, you guys have been name checked on this BBC article." And, I think while the overall context was negative, I think they've portrayed us as a kind of a shining light, helping to organize what's currently an unorganized home cooked scene.
How have you funded this up to now? And tell me about this crowdfunding campaign you have coming up.
Sure. So we started off, self-funding, bootstrapping the project initially. So, it was all out of personal savings from myself and my founder. And my founder has got experience with fundraising in the past. So he's kind of led those efforts. I've also managed to convince some friends and family to part with their hard-earned bucks to help bring this to life. So so that's kind of how we got it to this phase. And after that, it was about how do we raise a larger fund to take this to the next level. So that's where the crowdfunding piece came in. And a lot of food companies have gone down that route. So, companies like Mindful Chef, they've crowdfunded. Even some of the challenger banks like Monzo, Revolut, etc., they've all done successful crowdfund campaigns. And because with crowdfunding, at the end of the day, the investor is an everyday investor, and if they understand the concept, then they would sort of put part of their savings into the company. And because we are a very consumer friendly, for the people kind of a platform, that's how we are able to connect with not just the larger investors but the smaller investors mainly. So that's how the entire crowdfunding pieces come about.
It's interesting because I think your timing couldn't have been any better, because I was reading something just this morning about, how various tech startups have been doing, in the last 12 months or so because of COVID. And by and large, the most successful sector has been food tech. It's just been in so much demand, and it's been just so successful. So, I mean, was this a consideration for you, or it was just a happy coincidence?
No, it's very much a coincidence, and it just sort of happened. It's a service we'd used using traditional phone call from other home chefs, and then it was a case of doing a digital. This business fundamentally digitally transforms that kind of business model, which I think more recently that has evolved in itself as well. It's gone from the phone call to and text message to having WhatsApp groups and having Facebook groups where menus are shared regularly and things. But it's still not quite the same as making it an absolutely simple end user experience, exactly the same as you'd get through one of the larger Uber Eats, Just Eat, Deliveroo kind of an app. So that's kind of where the USP of this services come in.
In Firstly, how immersed are you in startup culture? Are you like, just someone who's passionate about technology that's made a startup, or is like are startups on your mind?
So I think yes, I think it's something I've dabbled with across the years. Whether I should start my own startup, join another startup, which is sort of in the early phase. I guess I particularly don't have a preference. I've enjoyed working in the large corporate sectors as well, and then I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing right now. So as as a developer, as a manager, as a even as an entrepreneur, it's not something which I'm not biased towards any of them, depending on what the role is, what you are doing within the business as well. That absolutely dictates how satisfied and how much you enjoy it. So yeah, it's if we exit from this startup, then I could be at another startup in the future, or I could start my own thing, or I could even be at a large corporation. It all depends on what the opportunity presents itself. So yeah, I'm not that single-minded about startups, but in terms of my own current startup, absolutely.
I mean, if you if you if you have an exit strategy, it successfully pays off. I don't see why you would go back to a job anywhere for any reason. I mean, you'll be like a multimillionaire, surely.
Well, I'm not too
You
sure
you
about
you
that.
might be a billionaire.
I'm not too sure about that at this stage, but we all hope for the best. But
Yeah.
ultimately, money doesn't drive a lot of people, me included. It's all
Mhm.
about getting the best product out there. Seeing, I think the greatest joy for me while working at previous larger corporations, like doing the work for the London Underground at Sky, and even now, is having that mass outreach and having lots of people benefit from the work which you do, which is kind of an ongoing thread, which has kind of taken me from various jobs into this startup. So
Mm.
that's kind of my that's the thrill I get out of it, and that's the rush I get out of it. It's all about bragging rights at the end of the day. So
Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Money can't buy bragging rights.
absolutely.
So, do you have any advice for other fellow entrepreneurs who are looking to maybe kick off their first startup or their third or fifth startup or get into this? Is it a good idea? What are the ups and downs?
Yeah, sure. I think the first and most important thing is for anyone to probably avoid starting up on their own. Try and get a co-founder because when your energy levels are low, their energy levels are high, and vice versa. So it makes sure that things move on, and you're able to drive your startup forward. Whether it's one person or the other person, if both have the same levels, then even better. So that's sort of the first and probably one of the most important points. Second thing is sort of surrounding yourself by like-minded individuals through your hiring, through sharing part of your company, through equity schemes, and making sure. And because there's a lot more you can achieve through a highly motivated team than just one or two highly motivated people and others just sort of dragging along. So that's the second piece of advice. And then finally, what I would say is that pick something which you can absolutely devote your heart and soul to, and then there'll be no looking back. But don't do it for the money. That money never gives anyone any enjoyment. You should absolutely love what you do, and then everything else will fall in place.
It's very good advice. Thank you. So, as we go into the end sort of now, I wonder if you could tell me, like, looking back, do you have any sort of particular lowlight or highlight from your career that sort of stand out to you?
Yeah, I think probably sort of switching industries is something if given a chance, I probably wouldn't do a second time because as you're sort of developing your career. Having said that, I have switched industries again, but yeah, at least early in your career, you shouldn't switch industries, just so that you get good at one thing, get really good at it, be the best at it, and then look at kind of diversifying your skills or looking at other things. But so I think that's one thing which I given a second chance, I probably wouldn't do. And otherwise, it's just constant ups and downs.
And highlight, any particular highlight that stands out to you? Any amazing moment?
Yeah, so some of the work we did in Bangalore at Sling Media definitely it was probably the first product launch I was involved in, and very gratifying as an engineer to have your name attached to it. And then a lot of the work I did at Cubic for the London Underground and at Sky, again bringing a new product, new service to market. There isn't sort of greater satisfaction for an engineer, bringing this brand new thing and then having it well received. So those are the sort of key highlights. We see with the new startup as well. The day we launched it, the day we got a bit of media attention and press, very very gratifying. It just shows all of the days and nights of effort have come to something. So yeah, those are sort of the key highlights.
That's great. That's awesome. I mean, it's great that you place so much importance on having an effect on people's lives. And it sounds like you're going to continue to do that. So, lastly, my final question for you is: tell me the joke of the show.
Oh goodness!
Yeah, make sure it's bad. It's got to be a bad joke.
We have to think. We might need to edit this piece out.
I did. This is the one thing I did warn you about. I said prepare a joke.
So why do bees have sticky hair?
I don't know, why do bees have sticky hair?
Because they use honeycombs.
Because they use honeycombs. Very good. Thank you, Shabir. That's excellent. That's a suitably bad joke of the show. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
And that's all, folks. If you're looking for any further info or have any questions, comments, or feedback, head over to aheadintech.com. This has been Ahead in Tech, helping you get ahead in tech. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and remember to subscribe.